Hey guys, Tristan and Troy here, back with another podcast. Really, really excited. Thank you so much for the warm reception of the first one. We really enjoyed doing it. So we're back to talk again today about the cool stuff happening in the NBA and in the basketball card hobby. Real quick though, before we start, this is actually going to be the last one that we have on my channel. We're really trying to make this a thing going forward. So if you could go subscribe to our new channel in the description down below, the full podcast will be there, and we're also going to do a cool little giveaway. It's just small, but we have some cards here that we're going to give away on the channel. We have like a Sekou, Bagley, but we also have some cool stuff, McGrady, Kevin Garnett, Rudy Gay, Topps Chrome, Kevin Love. Not going to lie and say they're big time cards, but we're going to be doing fun stuff on that channel. So like I said, if you want to hear this going forward, I'd really appreciate it if you go subscribe right now to the new channel with the link in the description. But that's enough of plugs. Let's get into it. It's nice to have you back, Tristan.
Troy, happy to be on. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good. We've both been watching a lot of basketball lately. It's so nice to have it back. What games have you been watching? What stood out to you?
There's a lot to talk about. I would say sticking with the Eastern Conference, I think Philly being 6-1 with Doc Rivers is definitely promising. I know like strength schedule so far hasn't been that great. They played the Hornets twice, and they beat up on a couple other bad teams. But I think more than anything, the fact that I think they have the number one defense right now in terms of defensive rating. And then you have Embiid and Ben Simmons playing at borderline elite levels, coexisting, which I think is helpful. So they obviously fixed some problems in the offseason. They brought on Seth Curry and Danny Green. I think pretty obvious fits. You finally have like some shooting around those two guys. So I think that team is definitely interesting to monitor in the East, along with the Celtics and a couple other teams that have been playing pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned the Sixers right away. I've definitely been watching them more because I picked up some Ben Simmons prisms and at the very least checking the box scores after their games. And it's just surprised me, first of all, how consistent Ben Simmons has been. Even if he doesn't put up a lot of points, just consistent every game. Almost, he could average a triple double, I really think, if he wanted to. You mentioned Seth Curry and Danny Green. Seth Curry's been putting up pretty good numbers. Not that it really matters in the scheme of things, but just shows you how much he can help them. So it's been great to see them. I guess what stood out to me in the games I've been watching is I think the Hawks are low-key the real deal. Trey too. I mean, their record maybe doesn't show it. They're not lighting the league on fire, but they look really good when they're out there. And even more than that, they're just really exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely legitimate, like a legitimate playoff team in the East. I think they did lose to the Knicks last night. But in general, the fact that they have like DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Herder, all these young guys that were supposed to take a leap.
Oh, we
Have
can't even mention my guy Collins in there.
Collins and Trey, it goes without say. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the one and the
Yeah.
two.
Well, I was just gonna say real quick on Collins and throwing it back to last episode real quick, stuff we could see coming. Like, I was big on Collins. I'm obviously really biased, but he had a huge highlight dunk and then the Trey lob off the glass. Like, those guys are just exciting. And I just knew
Absolutely.
like that was going to be there. And even just, I mean, who cares? I was right. I'm just loving watching it.
Absolutely. Super fun to watch. I think that two-man game is good to watch. But like I was saying, I think the supporting cast is like DeAndre Hunter. These other guys are actually playing really well, playing defense, which obviously you need around Trey Young and John Collins. But I think the Hawks are going to be legit, and I think they're ahead of schedule. Like by all accounts, they look like they're ahead of schedule. I think another team like me and you grew up in the Bay Area. We're obviously Warriors fans. Steph, I grew up watching Steph. He's probably my favorite player ever.
Big time
Um,
game for Steph.
Put up the 62 burger, finally cracked 60 points the first time he ever did that. And it just seems like they're playing with some passion and some fun. Honestly, they're actually smiling, laughing on the bench, cheering on guys when they're not in the games. Everyone was quick to write them off. Like even myself, I was a little concerned with how bad the defense looked. Oubre and Wiggins obviously aren't Kevin Durant, and like it's pretty clear that we were spoiled from like a basketball IQ standpoint. Like now we have two guys they're okay, and I think they're going to get better. But with Draymond stepping back in, the Warriors look. They beat up on the Blazers, beat up on the Kings. I think the Warriors are at least going to be in the playoff hunt. I don't know about a top 3 seed, but they'll be in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, they've looked better. It started off really, really bad. Obviously, you didn't have Draymond there. I think the most encouraging thing to me is honestly seeing Steph drop that 62 just because he felt like it. And this is going to sound, I'm even going to go so far as to say sacrilegious in the Bay Area. I wasn't sure Steph Curry could like will us to win. You know, I saw the comments and it kind of even got in my head. They're like, Steph's not built like that. That's why he's different than this, and that. But I mean, he showed us. I think he can. I think he
Yeah,
really can lead us to where we need to go, at least to hopefully make the playoffs or the play in.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm trying to think. I've been watching some Pelicans games. Brandon Ingram has looked good, continued to look
Yeah,
good.
I mean, he just 25 plus points a night. He's gotten his assist numbers up. Um, their defense is so, I think. Um, but Steven Adams in the mix helps, and then Zion, yeah, Zion and Ingram both are playing well. Lonzo obviously improved his jump shot. That much is
I
clear. So
haven't lost hope with my Lonzo cards.
I like
One
Lonzo.
day,
Yeah,
one day.
yeah. I mean, absolutely. His cards could. I mean, his name alone is obviously he's got the popularity. I think it took him a little longer than people would have expected. And then can he do it in the half court, which I think is definitely interesting to monitor moving forward. But one other team that's like young, I think the Celtics, like Jaylen Brown is playing the best basketball of his career by far.
Yeah,
Like
I
he's
did not see that one coming.
almost at 30 a game. Him and Tatum are both like averaging, I think, 27 or something like that. Tatum just put up another 40 ball last night. Both of them have been hitting clutch shots. I think it's impressive to see. Like we knew they both had like you know uh, they could play on both sides of the basketball, but the fact that Jaylen Brown is this far along on offense, he's finally starting to make plays for other people. Um, Celtics are interesting, man. They've got some depth, and then they have some young. They have Grant Williams or Robert Williams, some other front court pieces, which I think we'll see how whether they get minutes and whether they improve. But I like that Celtics team, and Pritchard off the bench has been a dog for them too.
Yeah, they finally hit on a rookie. Like they have not been able to bring really anyone in. I mean, I guess Grant Williams plays some spot minutes, but I know Celtics fans are really happy to have someone contributing. The only thing that worries me about them, and this is not even just from me, this is from Celtics fans, they kind of know that they just need something more. Like it's not just showing up and giving a good account of themselves in the playoffs. They need more. They're hoping for more. And I think with their roster right now, it's just always going to be tough to legitimately contend.
Yeah, I think they're missing. I mean, I think Kemba in theory would be that other piece, but we saw him get exposed last year in the playoffs against the Heat, and even the round before. Didn't play very well. Maybe he was injured, maybe he wasn't, but I don't know if he's the answer. And frankly, I don't think he is the answer. But if Brown and Tatum are both, I mean, they're playing at like top 15, top 20, maybe even higher. Like if they're both at that level, I think there's you can't count them out by any means, because to have wing talent, that to have your two best players be wings and be that good, I think is definitely promising for the playoffs. We've seen it.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Pritchard. We talked about Lonzo. Obviously, LaMelo's in the league. This is kind of a transition to talk about the rookies in general, but also to relate it to the hobby a little bit. NBA Hoops is coming out in, I think, like 2 weeks, which is crazy. Obviously, not a big time set. Very much doubt you have any Hoops cards in your collection, but still cool that the rookies finally have their first cards coming out in NBA jerseys. Anyone besides Pritchard and who's stood out to you so far?
I mean, Lamelo has been fun to watch. Obviously, I'm watching Wiseman every game. He's just like seems like he's scratching the surface. Like just watching him move, he's so mobile and fluid, and he gets up and down the court, and he can be an elite shot, elite rim protector. So, um, I mean, I'd say those two stand out as probably the two best players in the draft. I mean, they're both top three picks, but then you have like wing guys that have looked good. Um, I mean, the Cavs wing was looking good in the preseason. I don't know if he's really done much during the year, but there's a couple other guys, but I'd say those two are the most notable: Lamelo and Wiseman.
Yeah, I mean, this is super overreaction theater right here, but whenever I watch Wiseman, like he just seems like the real deal to me. And everyone, more importantly than that, I find a way to make every video I do relate to Tyler Hero somehow. But when the big thing that sold me on him is all his teammates knew he was legit. Jimmy Butler, Bam, they looked for Hero, they talked him up. It's the same way with Wiseman. they're looking for him. They're looking to run plays for him, and they're so fixated on him improving because, like you said, he's only scratching the surface. They know how good he can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one other guy to monitor is kind of a deep cut, but Desmond Bain. I think he was the Grizzlies' first round pick.
Oh wow, I
Um,
like that. We
yeah,
got some sleepers on here.
yeah, and he's finally starting to get some minutes. I know the coach was thinking about starting him, so they play the Lakers tonight. We'll see, but he can definitely shoot. Like he could shoot the ball. And with Ja and Jaren Jackson out, I think he might have a long leash these next couple weeks. So it'll be interesting to see what he could do. But I think overall, the rookie class hasn't been awful. And kind of everyone chalked it up as like a terrible. Lottery picks don't mean that much. For top 5 pick is more important than the first round than the first overall pick next year. So there's been a lot of noise, but I think the player's been playing pretty well from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I have two more thoughts. I'll match your deep cut. I have Maladon, the French kid for the Thunder. I think as we've seen this year, kind of like using trends and history to predict the future, as you see with Keldon Johnson, Darius Garland, I still stand by. Those are not the most talented guys in the world. I mean, obviously they're really good players, but I think opportunity and minutes is almost more important.
Absolutely.
So Maladon on the Thunder, he's just going to have an opportunity to play. So that's a super deep cut. You mentioned LaMelo. I might have to just get a card just because that's the fun thing about the hobby. It's the fun thing about collecting. I just love watching LaMelo play. I would love to have one. But we talked about it a little bit before. I really think his hoops rookies are going to be like $40 or something absurd because everyone is so excited. I mean, people were spending crazy money on Prism draft picks. I can only imagine once they're actually in their NBA jerseys.
Absolutely. And like you said, like oftentimes those first cards to drop like are hyped up the most. So I mean if LaMelo keeps it up, it's not like that let's say it is $40. It's not like that can't hit $80 like from an investment standpoint. But I agree with you. Like sometimes it's nice to just take swings on guys and to just have some it's cool to say I have this guy's card, and it makes watching the games more fun and you root for him. And LaMelo is fun to watch. He's super creative with the ball. Obviously everyone sees the highlights on Instagram every night. So they probably get tired of it. But I think I tuned into pretty much the whole game last night. They're playing the Sixers, and I just like how creative he is, gets it done, gets the ball up quickly. He kind of has like the similar skill set to Lonzo, but he seems more creative and willing to do more in the half court on offense, at least.
Yeah, and I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here, but I know especially you dealing with mostly high-end premium players, premium cards. I talked about it in my video. I can't invest in guys who I don't think at least have the potential to be stars. So sorry, I'll keep this really short, but like Roy Hachimura, great player, but is he ever going to be an all NBA player? Like almost definitely not. So it's just hard for me to get excited. And LaMelo has his flaws, but he has as much star potential as pretty much anyone, which is that's why I like him.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be exciting to see. We'll keep you updated on those hoops prices. We'll definitely have to follow up and see what they end up being. But all right, so that's it for hobby news that this week. It's kind of a quicker one. Let's just get right into the Q&A. You guys asked some great questions. Once again, if you want to ask questions going forward, subscribe to the channel and also make sure to leave a comment on this one. We will start off from one from Malone Quinn. Where do you see Zion cards going? They came down a little recently. So will that continue, or is one big game going to turn it around? Like even his Christmas 34 points didn't change much.
Yeah, I think with Zion, like they were already higher last year. I think the run when he was playing really well, or even the hype going into the season. I think his car is easily like it's going to take more than one game, but all it takes is a couple weeks stretch where he's averaging 30 and 12, which he's totally capable of, and shooting it at 60% from the field. Like he doesn't miss a lot of shots. I think he totally can. His price can definitely go up, almost overnight. I think within a couple weeks of playing well, it could go up. But also in that same beat, I think if he has a minor injury or if he's playing less minutes, or can't if the Pelicans are starting to sputter, like right now they have a winning record. If that doesn't maintain, if they're not in the playoff push, and if he's just kind of doing whatever and his stats aren't really improving from last year, I think you could see a pretty big drop because already people are paying premium for his high end cards. Like his national treasures are in the $50 to $100,000 range. It's just absurd at a 99. So he's already being priced as like a future Hall of Famer, 10-time All-Star. That's kind of, those prices are already baked in. So I would caution people. However much upside you think he has, he also definitely has some downside. Not that I'm saying it's going to happen or want it to happen, but I think you need to be at least realistic with yourself that there is that risk.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Zion is it's not about him, like him having one good game is not really going to help his card prices because we all know he can do it and we've seen it. It's all about the consistency for him. So I'm going to believe this guy. I don't know Zion's prices on a day-to-day trend type of thing, but I know they've definitely overall trended upwards. And I honestly see that continuing if he stays healthy and just stays consistent because the more his averages are going to, stay solid, the more he stays healthy. Just if people see him out there and just continuing to produce, it's going to solidify more and more. And like you said, he is high risk, definitely high reward, but I think people will become a little less scared of that the longer he's on the court, basically.
100% agree with you. Like even his like per minute from a per minute basis, like last year he was insane. He was borderline elite, and that Pelicans team was really good. Then they stepped into the bubble. They forgot how to defend. I think that kind of led to the prices dropping. So I think, like you're saying, the more people see of him, and then the more people see that can his game actually contribute to winning basketball games. Like they don't need to be a playoff team this year, but they definitely need to be close to that play-in or in the play-in. And I think in the short term, that's what they need to see for prices to rise. Obviously, if you zoom out a little bit, you're going to need to see some success from him in his first 3 to 4 years. That's why Luka and Trey and these other guys, I mean, Trey this year at least, the prices are already crazy high, but it seems a little more justified. Zion, can he do it on a playoff team? Is he even the best player on his team? But I think to your point, I mean, it remains to be seen, but I think there's upside and downside.
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap this one up, I think it speaks to how talented he is. Like this guy mentioned, he scored 34 and his prices actually even went down. Um, I mean, I'm not going to say there's a lot of different factors, but it's kind of like he scored that and people were like, yeah, okay, we believe it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't see that with many other prospects. So yes, it speaks to, first of all, how expensive he is, but also how talented he is. So the next question is from Jerky Jones. Do vintage and 90s cards go up in price when the NBA season starts? And when retired players die, does that make their cards go up in price as well? Like when Shaq, Yao Ming, or Larry Bird die, will their cards go up? Odd question, I know, but I'm curious. Okay, so first of all, I will say we're not going to speculate on any deaths on this podcast,
Wrong
but
podcast.
yeah, over under. No, we're not going to do that. But I still think it would be useful to talk about vintage cards and what does cause them to go up, because that's been a tough thing for me. Like I'm a huge Tim Duncan fan, huge Tim Duncan fan, but I'm just imagining I'm going to buy this Tim Duncan card and I'm just going to be staring at it like go up already. Like I
Yeah.
don't what causes the spikes. What do you think about them as an investment? I don't know. Just what's your take on vintage?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the really, really high end cards and like the elite players kind of drive the market. So like you see LeBron cards go up. Immediately Jordan cards will kind of go up consistently. So I think like constantly the market is kind of moving to correct itself, or at least moving to equalize. So a lot of times you'll see young players that get the price bump right away. They're playing, they're relevant. Everyone's talking about them, looking to invest. You have people on YouTube pushing out content. And then quickly there's a correction. It's like, okay, this is what Trey Young's refractor PSA 10 goes for. Why is Harden so cheap? Or why is Dwayne Wade so cheap? Like you saw when Dwayne Wade was playing the last year, I think his cards were going up a little bit. Our buddy Darius was picking up a bunch of his cards, and then he retired. Then this new crop of young players came in and their prices were super high, and immediately people were jumping to, why is Dwayne Wade a 3-time champion not at that price? Or 4-time champion. I don't know. I don't know if he won 3 or 4. I think he might have won. Whatever it was, obviously a legend, probably the second best shooting guard ever. So I think it's not always consistent. It's not rhyme or reason. It's not like, oh, when this happens. Obviously, the Kobe Bryant thing was super tragic. Like I don't even want to speak on it. It's ridiculous. 2020 was fucked up for so many reasons. But like from the hobby standpoint, people will rush to get his cards. They love Kobe. It's Kobe's part of the LA culture. So it definitely did move the market. So it's not, I mean, like we'll keep it away from the death thing, but I think the players that actually had an impact, like Dirk Nowitzki, like if you're from Dallas and you grew up watching Dirk, like his cards are going to stay relevant to you and to the people in Dallas and, anyone that were watching those games. So I think, there's not necessarily rhyme or reason. I think in general, vintage goes up over time. I've seen that with the LeBron cards I have, and um, some other cards. The other thing you have to think about, I know I'm going on a rant here, but
I'll go ahead. I like it, man. Keep going.
the other thing is like before 2003, there was no exquisites. Like the whole jersey auto patch thing, like true rookie year cards didn't exist. So like a lot of like Kevin Garnett cards or Tracy McGrady cards, like they don't have the same high end, like they don't have the same rookie high end cards available. So I think that's worth noting. So like a lot of times Tim Duncan or these other players will only have a couple really nice rookie cards. And I think that, I mean, honestly, could be good going forward because if you do have, some of those cards, I think you can do really well for yourself because there's not a whole boatload. In 2020, there's a ton of rookie products, right? So if it's a 1988 card, there wasn't that much. So if you do have a rookie card and it's in a good grade, I think you're pretty set long term.
Yeah, for sure. I think, vintage is definitely safer than investing in these newer guys. I mean, that's not a new take. That's literally everyone's favorite YouTube comment. Oh, just invest in vintage. It'll hold forever. But they are right. Like if the market, you talked about them, it sticks with the market. If the market heats up, let's just say LeBron and Luca get to a certain place, or even as we've seen, Darius Garland and Keldon Johnson get to a certain price. It's kind of like Tim Duncan, Kobe, Dirk, as you mentioned. It has to drag their prices up. And we've seen that in the past. And there's not too much outside of like a really terrible thing happening, like them doing something bad in their lives now, that's going to send it down. So as long as the basketball market continues to appreciate, it's going to drag those cards up too. And there's not too much that's going to send them down besides just an overall tumble of the economy or the card market in general. And that's why I think they can be such good investments.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point. And I know like for the last couple of years, there's a lot of smart money buying up older cards. Not only because they grew up watching them play, but also because they think it's, doesn't make sense that all these unproven guys are 2 or 3 or 4 times as expensive as a Hall of Famer and a multiple time, NBA champion.
Definitely. And, we like to keep this podcast relatable and stuff, but I think it's also really interesting for people to hear more about like the high end world. You mentioned high end cards. I'd be interested to see, like, there was definitely a Luca Trey effect. I would think that even across sets, it can be a huge effect because the comps are kind of sometimes like wonky. So let's say, a Luca Gold Prism goes for 75K. It's kind of like, okay, if you own any gold prism, I would think it kind of like moves those up too.
Absolutely. Like those big cards, I think you hit it on the head. Like those big cards will definitely move the market, and it makes sense because if it goes for anything. Like if these players, if you say someone is, X as good as Luca or like Trey Young, I know for a while he was like a quarter of the price, and people were saying his rookie year, his numbers were just as good. He seems like he's just as good of a passer, creator, all these things. He shouldn't be a quarter of the price. So I think a lot of times they will use comps, even if it's a different player, even if it's a different year. You'll say, well, why? Like I said, why is James Harden this much of Trey, or why was Dwayne Wade this price compared to Steph or these other guys? I think there's no other way to do it because it's not going to always be the same exact card. So you kind of need to be able to compare
Yeah,
across sets.
exactly. It's interesting and it's something I want to learn about personally going forward, and I hope other people do too. The comps and the way they rise and fall is so much different because Prism Base, we talked about it the other day, the price is set. Like there's always literally almost a pinpoint within $5 or $10 exactly what you should be selling that card for. Where with high end, it is just so different. But
Yeah.
I'll look forward to hearing about that going forward. We'll go to the next question. This is from Jeter Collector. He's not a fan of Luca. Oh no. He is a fan of Luca. Okay, fair enough. But
I'm on a roller coaster here. Which one is it?
yeah. But his question is thoughts on Embiid versus Jokic.
Yeah.
Embiid Prism PSA 10s going for 350 while Jokic is nearing 1,000.
Yeah. I mean, those are two of my favorite players in the league. I'm a little bit biased, I'll admit. Like I have uh, like four or so national treasures of Embiid. I really like him. Um, I think it comes like personal preference. Like those two players are both they've both played for I think 5 or 6 seasons each. Jokic is a two-time All-Star. Embiid is a three-time All-Star. They've both made a couple All NBA teams, and they're both the best player on their team. And they've made Jokic last year made a really deep playoff run, but Embiid has done it in the past. So I think it kind of goes to whether or not you value defense or playmaking. Um, I think they're both special. Like Embiid really could be the defensive player of the year. He's already made two All NBA defensive teams, um, and he's like up at the top of plus minus, and his defensive numbers are crazy. Um, with all the stuff, scoring efficiently, leading his team, all these other things, and then you have Jokic on the other hand, not great. Like he's not a great rim protector. He's not a great athlete. Doesn't have the same tools, but is leading the league in assists right now. He's averaging 13 assists right now,
Wow.
which is absurd, and super fun to watch. Like that Nuggets team, but they're losing games. I think they have a losing record. So, me personally, I'm gonna go with the guy that I think can be the best player in a series on both ends. And I think Embiid, when he's locked in and engaged, can be the best player in the league. I'm not saying that's happened or it's gonna happen, but I think there's that potential. Jokic, I love him. He's fun to watch. He's super dynamic. He makes everyone around him better. But I think maybe there's a ceiling with him as your best player, especially the center position. Like you need to be able to protect the rim and guard other centers. And I don't know if Jokic can do that. So from a price, I don't know. I mean, Jokic I think he's a second round pick, so he doesn't have all the same high end cards that Embiid has. So maybe the Prism stuff is valued a little higher because you don't have as many cards to collect. Um, but I would imagine Jokic is probably a little more expensive. And the durability question, Embiid missed the first 2 seasons of his career, and kind of has these scary falls regularly. And in his durability is definitely a question mark. I think more so than Jokic. So I don't know. Those are two. That's a really good question. I'm happy to talk about. I could talk about these two guys all day long. I think they're both two of the 10 best players in the league. I like Embiid more, but that's just kind of me. How do you feel?
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts, but first of all, I'm going to agree. Embiid definitely has more potential. I don't think there's many people who would disagree with that. I mean, he has as much potential as anyone to just be one of the most dominant forces in the NBA. And we've even seen that in flashes and even in like the All-Star game. There was a period where they just kept going and feeding Embiid. You think about all these superstars, they're like, we want Embiid to get the ball. I'm going to disagree with you on one note, though. I think for the playoffs right now, I would take Jokic just because you know what you're getting and he's going to be consistent and he just makes winning basketball plays. I'm not saying Embiid doesn't, but I would just look to rely on Jokic so much more right now. Um, and but the one thing you mentioned, Embiid's durability concerns, that's definitely there. I'm a little worried about Jokic too. It's kind of like good and bad with him because he doesn't rely on his athleticism at all, but he's also so unathletic. And like my team in the Philippines, we trained with the Serbian team and we had a bunch of Serbian coaches. And let me tell you what, like, obviously this guy works hard if he's in the NBA, but you can see it. He's just a happy go lucky guy. And when he goes home to Serbia or if they don't have Nuggets practice, that guy is chilling. So once again, he doesn't rely on his athleticism, but I also see a scenario where his body goes bad and then it just gets bad really, really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he already doesn't have that many tools to work with athletically. So I think if he loses that edge, um, I think I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you in terms of the playoff stuff. Like Jokic has already been one of the best crunch time performers in the playoffs. He's gotten better. I mean, so is Jamal Murray. I think that's why their team made such a deep run last year. But um, I agree. I think they're both in the same range, and I think it'll be interesting because I think over the next 3 years, you'll see one of those two players differentiate, like kind of separate himself from the other. I mean, maybe they'll both just stay where they are, but I think they both could make a run. They could be the best player on a conference finals team or even make it to the finals. So I think the next 3 years will be interesting to monitor. And then, going forward.
Definitely. And I'm sorry for just kind of glancing over this one, but Michael Porter Jr., if he becomes 50% of what he could be, that could mean a very dangerous Denver Nuggets team in the
100%.
playoffs. Yep.
100%. But can they
But
guard anyone? That's the only, I mean, I know I said it before, but Their defense is terrible. I think it was like 29th or something. I was listening to the low post, but they got rid of Torrey Craig. They got rid of Jeremy Grant. They lost some of that wing defense. And, with Murray, Jokic, and Porter, God, that's going to be so much fun to watch. They can all score. They're great shooters. All of them can pass, rebound, all these things. But if you can't guard anyone, you're not going to win in the playoffs, period.
Yep, 100%. There's a million questions we have of them on defense, but only one way to see. We'll see what happens as the season and the playoffs play out. Okay, last question. Really like the conversation. Definitely want to get your thoughts on finding deals on other sites like Facebook, especially in the groups. A lot of people lowball and you have to work to make a good sale. There also seems to be a large gap between eBay, FB prices, and Star Stock, which makes me wonder why everyone doesn't put their cards there. Pretty solid arbitrage opportunity, it seems like. Hope you answer in one of the following vids. So I know you're not a big Facebook group guy, but this was still something I was interested in hearing. You do a lot of buying and selling on Instagram. What's that like? What are the benefits? What tips? I don't know. Just tell us
Yeah.
about that.
I mean, honestly, I'd say I conduct like 60 to 70% on Instagram. I try to do as much as possible. When I need the money immediately, obviously I'll just use eBay. I'll auction off, or I'll do a quick auction, or I'll just list it at a pretty fair price. But in general, when it's in the off season, or I'm patient and I can just pick up cards as they come, I'm on Instagram as much as possible. I know me and you talked a little bit about this offline, but there's no one way to do it. I think, like, for me, Instagram is cool because you have such a wide audience. Like I said, there's accounts with 20,000 followers. So what I've done in the last year, like, I went out, followed like 7,000 people, didn't spam it, but I've slowly built it up over time. I've got close to 5,000 followers myself now. I just think, like, I want as many people to see my page as possible, as long as they're willing and they're interested.
So you could run all your razzes, right?
Yeah, I'm doing all these box breaks and all this stuff. No, I really don't do any of that stuff.
Your PS5 Raz?
No, I don't even know what that is. Couldn't even tell you what that is.
A
But
PlayStation 5?
oh, what is that? No, yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Sorry, sorry for my bad joke. But some of the stuff I see on Instagram is crazy. Sorry. Side note. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of spam accounts on Instagram. It's not like every account's great, but I think the fact that it's another, like, software that you can use and utilize, like, I mean, Instagram has a community. So, like, for example, if I have never dealt with someone, they'll often have dealt with like 5 to 10 people that I've worked with before. So you immediately can use references as a gauge whether or not someone is legitimate. You can send photos. Instagram isn't going to flag you like eBay does. Like, eBay tries to, you can't send a phone number or photos or anything else. They're trying to get their money, but a lot of people, if they can avoid 10% and then another 4% from PayPal or 3%, it's just, those really eat away at your margins if you're trying to do this as a side hustle or a business. So I think Instagram has been a godsend. Like, for me, if I'm looking for a player, I kind of told you this, I'll hit up, 15 to 20 people, people that I've seen collect that player in the past, and then just other people that I've talked to in the last month. I've got hundreds and hundreds of messages in my inbox. So hitting people up, not in a spammy way, but like in a legitimate, this is the player I'm looking for. Hey, what type of stuff are you picking up? Can I help you out? Type deal. And I think people are really happy to hear from you. And I've had multiple times, like, I bought my, the Curry card I just posted, a super nice card. I got it for like $3,000, BGS 10 rookie classics, like, awesome card. Someone just referred me. They said, hey, someone was selling this on a Facebook group. Tristan, I hope you're well. Hit him up if you want. And I did. I hit him up, bought the cards. Like, that's happened. That's not the only time that's happened. So I think developing like a good community of people, and then being willing to put in the time to send messages and just look around.
Yeah, definitely. I think you mentioned building relationships. So important for life, really, but especially in the card market. There's been a lot of times where, like, I've messaged guys just asking, like, oh, how did you take this photo? Your photos of your cards look really nice. And then they're just, they tell me, but then they're just happy to talk about cards after that. Like, a lot of people I know, I'll just speak for myself, but if someone asks me a question or asks me about a card, I enjoy just, shooting the breeze, talking about card stuff. And don't get me wrong, you can definitely bother people if you're just like reaching out. But I mean, people are on Instagram, they're there to talk and enjoy the hobby. So definitely nothing wrong in reaching out to people and building those relationships. I will take more of the Facebook angle because I know that's he asked about that, and that's not something you do too often. Facebook for basketball cards has been pretty bad for me. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but we talked about it too. This is one of the things we talked about offline. For a Prism card, there's pretty much a set price it's going for. And let's just say I talked about Luka Doncic Prism PSA 9. That's a $700 card. If you're selling on eBay, you're only taking home almost like 600. So, 650, 675. It just shouldn't be much negotiation if you're selling that card on eBay. But on both sides, I've had sellers asking for like 900 for a $700 card and they won't come down, or it's a $700 card and the buyer's trying to get it for 400. I did it at first, and then at some point I just couldn't even deal with it anymore. I'm like, it's not worth my time. That sounds super pretentious, but it's true.
100%. And like that's like a lot of people will try to lowball you. I mean, to their credit, if it works for them, it works for them. But like to you said, that's not how you make meaningful relationships, and it's not realistic. Like if you hit someone up 100 times and you come under the price by 30%, how many times are you going to get someone to sell it to you? Maybe once or twice, or maybe it won't happen at all. So I think it's, people are kind of greedy and they want to find a good deal, and sometimes they're just doing it. They're, that's their version of bartering with people. But for me, I think if, especially in the higher end cards, like oftentimes you'll both come in with a pretty good idea of what the card's worth. And then you can go from there. But
Well, I would think that'd be even worse, to be honest.
No, I
You
mean,
would know better than me, but it's just like,
harder to price.
who's to say? The comps are crazy. The comps are crazy on high end cards. So you could be, depending on like tweaking, like depending on just the smallest thing, that could be a $20,000 swing.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. It is. It's harder, but generally the people doing it aren't like the guys hitting you up for $400 on the Luka. Like they're
Well,
a little more rational.
I was gonna say, and I'm gonna tell something that no one cares to hear, but I'll say it anyways. Like when I buy my soccer cards, my Facebook transactions are amazing. Like every time the people are like, yeah, it's worth 100, but you're buying a lot, so I'll give it to you for 80, and it's just like boom, done. Never any funny. No, hey man, I couldn't get to the post office today. My dog, bit me on. Like it's just very like strictly business. But in basketball cards, it's like it's just so hot right now, which is a good thing. But there's a lot of new people, and I'm a new person in a sense, so I can't say it's bad to be new to the hobby. But there's a lot of just, I don't even know, not jib jab, but like I guess riffraff going on in the basketball card hobby, and it's just a little frustrating at times for sure.
I totally agree. But I mean, you take the good with the bad. Like that happens, and yes, Facebook might not always work, but all it takes is like 3 or 4 really good transactions for you, and it's worth your time. And that's how I look at Instagram. I sent out a ton of messages. I was trying to pick up Kawhi cards. There was one lead. I got the card and made everything else worth it. So I think that's kind of how I go about it. Like you said, maybe Facebook isn't always working. Instagram doesn't always work, but there are just other methods. Also, just being on eBay constantly, looking at auctions, what's selling. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, to end it on like a little bit more of a positive note, I think we both gave this advice in the last podcast too, but put in the time and you will be rewarded. So if you're on eBay looking at new listings, looking at ending auctions, you're on Facebook looking at the groups, you're building Instagram connections. And I'm not advocating, okay, spend your entire life just looking for card deals, but especially I've said, if you're younger or if your capital is limited, if you put in that time and you build those relationships and you're constantly searching, it really will pay off for you. And that's a great way for you to build your collection and enjoy the hobby.
Totally. Like there's been those places all along, like you have blowout forums or blowout marketplace. Like there's a lot of good people that will talk and discuss and figure out whether or not you align with them. Because there's people talking all the time about whether they not think young players are good investments or it's a waste of money. And it's just, maybe you don't agree with it, but it's definitely interesting to get the public's perception and, align it with your own. And that's kind of how, to be honest with you, that's how I've made the money I've made. Is I've kind of taken the overall consensus and said, okay, maybe I agree here, I disagree here. There's some money making opportunity, or there's just, I can buy a nice card for my collection that I'm going to keep for a long time and it's not going to kill me.
Definitely. We are just collecting at the end of the day. So, okay, on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely, if you haven't already, please subscribe. This is going to be the last one on this channel. So if you did enjoy, subscribe to the channel exclusively for the podcast going forward. We're also going to get this on Spotify and Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. we're really trying to make this a thing. We hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for the support on the first one, and we're going to keep the episodes coming. Thanks again.
Troy, thanks for having me on, man. Once a week, every week.
Let's do it.
I'll
All
be
right.
here.
See you guys.
Thanks, man.